or a constitutional lawyer and a public affairs commentator. He's joining me on the phone line right now. Barrister Nzako, nice to have you. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning to our dear listeners.
Wonderful. Joining him as well is Jake Epele, a great friend of ours. He is also a public affairs commentator and founder TAF Africa. He's on the phone line as well. Mr. Epele, nice to have you. Good morning.
Hi, Victor. Great to be here. And I think I want to let the listeners know the kind of personality you are and the resilient person that you are. The fact that you are legally blind and you're doing something that even an individual with his full eyes cannot do.
Right.
It goes to show that, you may lose your sight, but your real eyes is in your heart, and you're doing us proud. We're proud that you're a person with disability.
Right.
And we're proud of the work you're doing. But I think one introduction you didn't say is the fact that I am a bona fide indigene and a proud indigene of Rivers State.
I was just coming to that. I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's going to be my first question. Barrister Nzako, we will come to the constitutionality of the declaration. But for you, Jake Epele, as a prominent voice from Rivers, did it come to you as a surprise that Mr. President declared a state of emergency in your state?
With politicians, if you think, if you say you're surprised, then you don't know politics and politicians, especially in this side of the world. They don't surprise me anymore. They don't surprise me anymore. They can do and undo because some of them feel that they are God.
Right.
But yes, it's not surprising to me. What is surprising to me, Victor, is the fact that this president, who stood for everything democracy, who had laid out his life for democracy, is turning around and undoing everything that he believes in.
Right.
That's what's surprising to me.
Okay, then. I'm going to hold you on a bit there. Let's get to Barrister Fred Nzako. So, you are a constitutional lawyer, and I've heard the arguments from different ends, from lawyers, and some have said, no, this is illegal, while others have said, well, the president had no choice. So, talk to us this morning, Barrister Nzako. Was the president right to declare a state of emergency in Rivers?
In capital letters, and without any fear of contradiction or equivocation, and with due respect to Mr. President, he is very, very wrong.
Why do you say that?
He is wrong. Declaration of state of emergency on its own is not wrong. But the type of state of emergency that he declared leaves a lot to be desired and makes it wrong completely.
Right. Okay.
Mr. President declared state of emergency and dismantled democratic structures in Rivers State in the process, which of course is not supported by Nigeria's constitution, not supported by any law of the land.
Right.
That a state of emergency will carry along with it the democratic structure in a democratic civilian environment.
Okay, so
that is what makes it wrong.
Let's look at the statutes now. Let's look at the books. I mean, you guys are the constituents. You guys know how to interpret it all. And the president also cited the section of 305 as one of the reasons, or perhaps the powers that he has to do so. So, in what way is it wrong? Can you just go through the statutes and let us know what makes him wrong?
Section 305 of the Constitution, which Mr. President relied upon to declare state of emergency, was breached because what Mr. President did not follow the prescription of Section 305. That section has many subsections. Subsection 3 clearly itemizes the conditions precedent for a state of emergency to be declared. And none of those conditions precedent was available at the time of such declaration. It says if Nigeria is at a war or threat of war, if any part of it is at a war or threat of war, if there is public disorder to the extent in any part of Nigeria, to the extent that regular measures will fail to arrest such public disorder and bring it back to normalcy, if there is an act of nature that requires, for instance, for example, if there's an earthquake or a holocaust of any nature that requires unusual measures to arrest and to bring life back to normal.
Right.
The intention and contemplation of the Constitution is such that if there's anything that happens in the land or any part thereof that does not allow the regular run of things to arrest and to bring them or bring it back to normalcy, then a state of emergency can be declared. State of emergency means an avenue to allow you to arrest the situation through extraordinary measures.
Okay.
And such extraordinary measure does not in any way include removal of existing democratic structure or collapsing of democracy in the state.
Okay. Let me hold you on there. I mean, extraordinary measures, that's the key word which some lawyers or perhaps those who are arguing for the president have relied on. Jake, let me bring you in at this point. Perhaps Mr. President said if he didn't take these measures, probably the state could have really gone out of hand. I mean, just before he declared that state of emergency, the gross misconduct, allegations have been leveled against the governor from the State House of Assembly, and probably it was tilting towards the point where he will be impeached. So, don't you think he was right for declaring that state of emergency, Jake?
He is not. The lawyer has given you the legal interpretation, and I am not a lawyer. I would give you the moral interpretation of this well elucidated legal interpretation by my co-panelists this morning. See, morally, the president, and I say this with due respect and very emotion-laden individual that I am. I've been very emotional about this. And sometimes in the course of your program, if I cry, that's fine, It's unfortunate that this president that I have defended, not because I am a fan of all his political ideologies, but I am a fan of his genuine compassion for the less privileged. Nobody would take that away from Bola Tinubu.
Right.
I've heard. I haven't experienced. I've not been a benefactor, and I don't need to be. However, I've heard how many people he has paid school fees for. I've heard how many indigent people that he has picked up from the street.
Right.
And his son is doing a bit of that. You understand? And so to me, he should have taken the high moral grounds. Number one, openly rebuking Nyesom Wike, who is the architect of this trouble. And I pray that one day he will realize that this guy is on a trajectory to destroy everything that he has worked for.
Okay, so let me just interrupt there.
No.
Just a second. Some have said that the president is doing that based on what the Supreme Court has said. I mean, the Supreme Court never mentioned Nyesom Wike as a party to this conflict.
Come on, Victor, we're not children. You know that Wike is the handwriting on the wall. Even I believe in the highest court of the land. I believe in their decisions, but I have my opinion because it looks to me like a doctored decision. it looks to me like a script. By the way, I speak with facts. I was on a television show with Tony Okorocha,
All right.
and I'm mentioning name. And he, without knowing it, and that's why when you cook up issues and lie and concoct things, you won't know when your mouth will slip off and you start exposing yourself. I quote him, is on tape. He said that he had looked at his crystal ball and saw what the Supreme Court is likely to decide. He said that. He's on tape. I was on the same show with him. He cannot sue me. He's on tape. You understand? That he looked at the crystal ball and he knew the direction that the Supreme Court was going. And I stepped back and I said, wait a minute. What you have just said now is like you wrote the script. You wrote the judgment script for the Supreme Court. You know?
Okay. So
these are some of the issues that Nigerians don't take into cognizance.
That's right. So while we will not want to impugn on the integrity of the Supreme Court, of course,
you're not. Victor.
Yes.
I made it very clear that I am a human rights defender. So I defend the rule of law.
That's right.
And you respect the highest court in the land.
Okay.
I respect the judge's concern. Okay. But I then have my opinion.
Which is very, very correct. And you can hold that opinion. But just 1 second. Barrister Fred Nzako, when we talk about emergency rule, there's a role that the National Assembly should play. From your assessment, has the National Assembly played that role? I mean, on Thursday, we saw both houses, both chambers of the Assembly supporting Mr. President's decision to declare this emergency rule. So, have they played it right according to the Constitution?
The Constitution provides copiously that after any declaration, 2 days or maximum of 48 hours, if they are in session, the National Assembly must critically look at it, either assent, that is support, or disapprove it. If it is approved, then it flies. If it is not approved, then it ends there. And if they are not in session, they have 10 days within which to rally around, come back from their holiday and vacation, and come and look at the issue of urgent national importance.
Right.
The National Assembly was in session, so the next day they had to do their work. But they disappointed Nigerians on two fronts. One, the Constitution provided that for the approval to be given, it has to be by 2/3 majority of the members of the Assembly. And what they did was that Nigerians expected that being the last hope of the representatives of the people, being the last hope as enshrined in the Constitution,
right,
to look into this matter, to correct any error committed by the executive, the legislature went and used voice vote on such a very important national assignment. To the extent that there is no way you will determine what 2/3 is with a voice vote. Okay. So it was a very terrible undoing by the National Assembly. And they further dissipated the hopes of Nigerians as the legislature and the parliament of the people, and as an organization that is supposed to oversight the executive and in most cases correct the errors of the executive.
Right.
They failed to correct the errors of the executive, and they joined the bandwagon and gave their voice vote for it to stand.
Okay, so in that kind of instance,
it's a very disappointing trend of things.
Yeah. So in that kind of instance, what kind of vote? What kind of vote would you have recommended? What kind of vote would you have recommended?
We would have recommended direct vote, electronic voting, one by one voting. The chambers of that assembly has been refurbished, and I expect, I'm not a member, but I expect and I feel and I think and I believe that they should have facilities for electronic voting.
Right.
One by one voting. After all, their name, the issue of seating arrangement has even caused an international problem between the president of the Senate and another senator.
Right.
So the refurbishing, the huge amount of money meant for refurbish the National Assembly, I expected that they should at least have a facility that will help them to vote one by one, so that the votes will be collected and the number determined whether it has made the two-third majority as enshrined in the Constitution.
All right.
Using a voice vote, obviously, there's no way it can give you that two-third.
And from your opinion, so the National Assembly has not done it right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, Jake, let's get to this. Now that emergency rule has been declared, this is 4 days down the line. What are the signals that you are getting from those on ground in Rivers?
Okay, Victor, you've been my friend forever. Please, I know you're struggling with time, no doubt. But if you can just allow me to...
land on your thoughts.
Yes, because you keep stopping me and, it doesn't help me at all.
Okay, go ahead, quickly.
Okay, so with that said, if I answer directly to your question, my people are traumatized. My people are completely devastated by this draconian, it's almost like a military decree handover, they are further concerned with the heavy presence of military personnel in Rivers State. It's like we are a state under siege, and that is troublesome. And I hope the likes of FCT minister and the president understand the mental torture they are creating for people like us. Even me, that is not in Rivers State, that is in Abuja, I feel the weight of the mental weight. That's why I break down many times emotionally.
Right.
And the torture that this whole thing is bringing to the state. We are the hen that lays the golden egg, that many of them are using to fly around and all that. And yet, we are being treated like outcasts. We need to be very careful. I thank God for the likes of my co-panelist, the lawyer,
right,
who is lending his voice. You understand? Thank God for your station and yourself, that what you're doing. But we need to understand the weight of this decision on Rivers people.
All right. Let me just hold you on a bit and ask you another question.
Victor,
just 1 second. Just 1 second, Jake. So, rewinding with hindsight now, because I know you've spoken extensively about this and you've tried to make your own interventions between the parties. With hindsight, do you think the parties involved would have done better?
Oh, yes. Let me begin with Nyesom Wike. Okay? One, if God uses you to install an individual, okay, just like God used other people to install him. Now, if I go down the memory lane, Wike was a local government chairman. Somebody related to me put him there. I think we need to say this. Put him there. Literally work hard for him to be that chairman. Today, he has neglected the person doesn't exist. He became SA to Odili. Odili hired him. He became chief of staff to Amechi. Amechi hired him. He became minister. Jonathan hired him. He became governor. Jonathan and even the man, the late Edwin Clark that he's abusing, contributed to him becoming that governor. What makes Bola Tinubu think that Ike will not do to him what he has done to everybody?
Okay. All right.
You understand?
Right.
So with that said, one, he needs to give up. He has trained everybody, stretched everybody. He needs to give up, and recognize that this is his state. That one day he will finish as FCT minister and come back to his state,
Right.
Number two, The president needs to act like the father of the nation that he is. You don't bring two people and heap blame on one person and leave the other person. He will not get results that way.
Okay.
You know, I know he has good intentions. But his action is opposite this good intention.
All right.
Thirdly, finally,
right.
My people, Rivers people who are listening to me today, let's not get ourselves entangled in the trap that they are setting for us. Don't carry arms. Obey the law. Don't protest. This is not the time to run into the street and start protesting. They will shoot you. You will die for nothing.
Okay.
It's not necessary.
All right.
Let's not hurt ourselves.
All right.
Let's continue to toe the line of peace.
Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM Talk Time is the program, and this morning we're looking at emergency rule in Rivers, a necessary measure or a constitutional overreach. Back to the traffic situation. Idumota corridor, I understand vehicular movement within the Adeniji Adele proceeding through Obas Palace and of course police posts, very encouraging, while Ilubiri connecting other parts also looking pretty good this morning. There's an incident report from the Mushin end. It's a lone accident of a gold Toyota Sienna car at NMPC by the Ramsela part, that's the injunction there, inwards journey challenge. I understand the car has been moved out of the road and no effect on traffic at the moment. So that's just for your attention. Those of you navigating through the Egbeda corridor, there's a major incident there which is receiving attention. It's a broken down, so it's an accident actually between an articulated vehicle and a saloon car. So take note of that. Ikeja and Maryland, GRA, very encouraging along the service lane of Anthony, inwards journey, Maryland intersection, heading towards Odoyalaro and of course Bobolaji Bank, Anthony Way. All those areas looking pretty good as we speak. All right, let's get back to this now. So, Barrister Fred Nzako, President has declared the suspension of the governor, his deputy, as well as the legislators for an initial period of 6 months. What does the Constitution say about declaration of emergency and the duration?
The Constitution never contemplated suspension of democratic structure. We have established that. And the issue of duration depends on whether the matter that led to the state of emergency declaration has been solved. If the problem has been solved, then the declaration will be eased. The declaration will be eased. And if the problem has not been solved, the president has the authority to renew the declaration after the first 6 months, and possibly for another 6 months. But in this particular instance, the issues that led to the declaration are political. So if the issues if the protagonists want to solve the problem, it can be solved in a week, and declaration of states of emergency can be lessened according to the House of Reps in the amendment of the prayers and the letter asking that they support the emergency declaration. So whether that will end in 6 months or whether it will be extended depends on the political situation and the political temperature of the environment. And again, depends on the intrinsic reasons for such declaration, because it is beyond what is on the surface.
All right. So, of what impact really will this emergency rule? What impact will it have on governance structures for Rivers State? What do you think will happen? Of course, we saw the military, the sole administrator now meeting with the traditional rulers yesterday. What impact do you think that will have on governance in Rivers?
The Rivers State has now become a militarized environment. You heard my brother Epele lament about it. What it means is that there's no democracy in Rivers. The Rivers is now under a military junta. So this can be called a military junta inside a democratic nation or a democratic country. And the meaning is that in the absence of democratic governance, in the absence of the legislature, that is the the bulwark of democracy, there's no democracy in Rivers. What you have is rule of force. And the place will now be over-militarized, and every other thing will now be according to the dictates of the military tradition, which of course you know that it is a unitary one and a command structure. And that is why Jake asked his people that this is not the time for anybody to float onto the street in demonstration, because under emergency rule, the civilian rule and the certain aspect of rule of law is kept in abeyance. One could be arrested and detained. Not this one that you say you can't detain somebody beyond 2 days. One could be detained for up to 30 days without trial under emergency rule. And there are so many other infractions against civil liberty and civil freedom, which emergency situation will not tolerate.
All right.
So that is why the people of Rivers have to be very careful in their conduct going forward.
Let's expand this discourse beyond the studios now to have the input of the listeners this morning. If you want to, yes, Jake.
Victor, let me just bring one 30 seconds intervention.
Okay, go ahead.
I really want to thank the voices like my brother that is on this program with me, and also NBA. I was with NBA president. They came out forcefully. But here's the problem that these people are not even considering. The legitimacy of the sole administrator. The people, whether you call it psychologically or philosophically, the people are rejecting him and considering him as not being legitimate. Even though we have this rubber stamp presidency and National Assembly.
Right.
You understand? But that's not what I'm calling for. I'm just telling you what the feelers I'm getting on the ground. He has been appointed, and he should be respected. He should be obeyed. And I think he also has the responsibility of conducting himself and his actions, his decision in the interest of the people.
Okay, then. All right.
Period.
All right. Let's see if we can expand this discourse beyond the studios to also have your input as a listener. 09153877127, and you can send in your messages on 08099120777. Messages streaming in already for this conversation. This one says, "Good morning, Victor, and the guests in the studio. Could the imposition of an emergency rule escalate tensions rather than resolve them?" This is Timini. Timini Hart is sending this one in. Timini, thank you so much for that question. This one says, "Happy weekend, guys. We know how overzealous our security agencies can be. I hope this emergency rule won't empower security agencies to act beyond their normal legal limits." Ifeanyi is sending that one in from Ojodu. Ifeanyi, thank you so much. So, in responding to the very first question, Fred, could the imposition of an emergency rule escalate tensions?
Well, it could escalate tension because we heard that a High Court of Rivers State has issued an expert order asking that the sole administrator should not take over the reins of governance in Rivers State. Now, the argument is now whether the expert order has come too late or whether it is still valid. It becomes an argument. Some lawyers said an expert order cannot take effect when the action it seeks to stop.
What's your own position? What's your own position as a lawyer?
Had already taken place.
What's your position?
Now, if the people insist that the administrator will not be given that cooperation, obviously there will be tension because he will be making efforts to enforce his authority, which in the mind of the people is an illegitimate authority because they never voted for him to come and administer over them. So it is a dicey situation that needs to be handled very carefully.
Okay. And Jake, overzealous security men.
Yeah, Victor, you see, some of us may not be politicians, but we have an elderly insight into a problem before they start. At the beginning of this whole debacle, strongly on national television, call the president to nip this thing in the bud, because we are heading towards a constitutional crisis. You understand? And this is what is evolving now. It's becoming a constitutional crisis of a sort. You understand?
All right.
That's why people like me and several others, we are calling on our people not to allow themselves to be pushed over the edge, and they begin to take actions that, two people cannot be wrong.
All right.
At this time, they are wrong, and they know it. We will not be driven by what I call a rights complex. A rights complex is, I know it's my right, but I'm going to enforce it. If you follow my advocacy over the years, I have always told the line of diplomatic advocacy. Okay. All right, which I can define to you here, that diplomacy here in this context is being able to say the truth without hurting.
Right.
That has been my trajectory. So please, my people, I'm interested in my people, okay, than anything than myself. Do not do anything that will tantamount to a violation of law and order.
All right.
We don't need that.
I'll be more reactions coming in here for you. This one says, good morning, Traffic Radio. What are the economic implications of an emergency rule in Rivers? Christopher Eze is sending that one in. Jake, 30 seconds.
Let me weigh in on that. Quick.
Right.
One. That's why when they were pumping with withdrawal allocation, shouting at the rooftop. When you do that, you withdraw social services. When you do that, you become an impediment to the livelihood of the people. When you do that, you don't give access to quality education.
Right. When
you do that, you impoverish the people, and some of them will start looking for gari to drink. So there are economic implications, there are governance implications, there are social implications, there are even spiritual implications. And I think they should have been insightful enough to know all of this before plunging into this anarchy decision that they have plunged us into. The implications are enormous, Victor.
Okay.
Think about persons with disability who are struggling with their lives, and now even beggars cannot be given money because people are agitated and they want to hoard what they have. Nobody knows tomorrow.
Right. Okay, then. More reactions coming in.
Psychological tension.
Yes, Jake, just 1 second. More reactions coming in. This one says, good morning and happy weekend. Victor, I believe Wike should have been suspended too because he had a hand to play with the situations in Rivers. Rivers said, it will seem the president is unbiased in his judgment. Sheung is sending that one in. Sheung, thank you so much. Fred Nzako, what do you think? What's your reaction to Sheung's concern? He feels, apart from the two parties, talking about the governor and the legislators, he feels the minister of the Federal Capital Territory should have also been reprimanded. What's your thinking?
I said this countable times that Mr. President, by his actions, has overindulged his minister. He has closed one eye that he would have used to look at Nyesom Wike, and he had failed to draw his ear to bring the needed peace in Rivers State. Rather, what the federal government has done is to heap all the blames on the governor, Mr. Sim Fubra. And in a manner of speaking, it now seems as if the whole emergency rule was aimed at getting a placation for the FCT minister, in a manner of speaking. And that is why people are feeling that Mr. President did not take balanced, impartial action. He took a one-sided action, all in the name of national interest. At the end of the day, everybody is saying it, and nobody will tell the people of Rivers what they know already.
All right.
And they know where the problems was coming from. And Mr. President did not address the other side of the issue. And that is why people are feeling the way they are feeling.
All right, then 09153877127. Those are the numbers. When you send in your message, feel free to do so. All right, now that the state of, declaration of emergency rules already on in Rivers, this is 4 days down the line. Can we have any other kind of resolution that would lead to the emergency rules suspended before the expiration of these 6 months? Is that possible, Jake?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying, Victor, I will disclose something that I'm not going to call name. I met with a very important figure in APC, and the person told me how disappointed he is. I'm not going to tell the person.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Now, in their resolution, in their internal resolution and deliberation, they have given the president a window to reverse himself. And I want to say this, Mr. President. Great leaders have learned to reverse themselves. It is not frustration, it's not humiliation, it is statesmanship. If you're wrong, you should be able to tell yourself, I'm wrong. Let the people know that you're wrong and move on. That will make you a hero than trying to, I'm not saying he is, but no leader,
right.
No leader will run on his ego.
Let me throw this at you quickly, Jake. People have fingered you elders of Rivers also adding to the problem. I mean, some have said you guys were the ones that were prompting the governor to take the steps he was taking. So what's your reaction to that?
It's not true. It's not true. They're just speculating. I was one of the first person. The moment, like I mentioned on channel, the moment this court order, the Supreme Court,
right.
My opening statement was, Fora, you must obey the court order. I know you are a person who respects rule of law. I did not only stop at that, I flew to him. I was on his side when he was implementing these things, even to his humiliation. I was there when he left from government house to the state assembly quarters. You understand? So many people, even some of the people that are pointing accusing fingers, actually told him to do the right thing. Maybe peradventure he listened, and listening to us sometimes have run him into trouble.
Right.
You understand? Because any other person would have done otherwise.
Okay.
Let me say this to Wilson Wike: take the moral high ground and resign. Okay. That's what you should do.
All right, Barrister Fred Nzako, what roles do you think civil society organizations, and even residents in Rivers, what roles do you think they can play in this emergency rule that we have right now?
Sorry, Peter, I didn't hear you well.
I said, what roles can the civil society, talking about the civil society organizations and even residents in Rivers, what roles do you think they can play in such a way that the implementation of this will respect human rights and protect good governance?
Well, the only role any meaningful person or organization can play now is to continue to obey the laws, continue to respect the rule of law, and continue to ensure that there is peace and and ensure that there is no volatility in River State. I mean, of course, that is what it is. And any other role will be to possibly approach the court for a definite judicial pronouncement on the illegality or otherwise of the declaration of state of emergency and the type of emergency that was declared, the type that had collapsed the democratic structures of the state. The judiciary needs to make a statement once again on this matter, so that it will add to the body of our judicial knowledge and the precedents.
So the big question here, Barrister Fred Nzako, is that it appears the laws of Nigeria, they look to be a confused document. Because when you say this is the way it is, other lawyers say it's not like that. Do we have laws that are not straightforward or that are opaque?
The law is straightforward. The implementers are approaching it with crooked hands. When you hold a straightforward instrument with a crooked hand and with a crooked mind, it will look or appear crooked. The law is straightforward.
Okay.
Those who are implementing it are the ones that are introducing confusion and crookedness into the law.
All right,
It's very obvious and very clear.
Let's begin to round this off right now. Jake, your parting thoughts on the program, and of course, what would you say? I mean, if you were to be with the parties, all the parties that are involved right now, what would you tell them? Quickly, in 30 seconds.
Let me leave it on a philosophical note. Everyone concerned, especially Mr. President, remember the day you were born, you cried, the whole world rejoiced. Live your life and leave a legacy that the day you die, you will rejoice and the whole world will cry.
Thank you.
That's a life of contribution.
All right, then. Thank you so much for that one as well. And Fred Nzako, 30 seconds, your parting thoughts?
Let's obey the rule of law and build a country that will be livable, developing for the benefit of the future and benefit of the generation yet unborn. We cannot spoil the environment where we have brought them to this world.
Okay.
We have a duty to preserve our environment for the future.
We'll leave it at that for now. It's nice having both of you on the program. Thank you so much, Jake, and thank you, Barrister Fred Nzako.
That's right. Thank you, my brother. God bless you.
Okay,
keep standing and speaking the truth.
All right, we'll leave it at that for now. And on the program, we'll be able to look at emergency rule in Rivers, a necessary measure or a constitutional overreach. And I've been speaking with two great minds, Fred Nzako, constitutional lawyer, and of course a public commentator. Same for Mr. Jake Epele, who is the founder of TAF Africa and also a prominent voice and indigene of Rivers State. We have to go now. The program this morning has been produced by Mike James, and I say a big thank you to Okpeyemi Shodunke of our social media unit. Our executive producer is Tayo Akonle. My name is Victor Oteri. I'm out. Still very much within. Be back by 10:15 for Maritime Today.